and welcome to Ben TV Presents Alphabet Soup. Now, tonight we're dealing with a bit of a hot topic, especially if you've kept your eyes on what's happening in marriage law. Tonight, heterosexuality, a curse or a social disease that we need to finally come to terms with. The Church of Latter-day Saints would like to take all of the deviant heterosexuals and march them firmly through the cold shower chambers, whereas the more relaxed United Gaysians, they say that we should have a more friendly kind of path where we have to take into account the human rights of everyone, even heterosexuals. So, it is time to finally squeeze the boil on our collective butts and ask the debate, heterosexuality, a choice or a genetic malfunction? Now, to help us do that tonight, we have 6 wonderful people who will be our 2 teams. I'll start over with Team A. We have over here Mr. Brett Hayhoe, general community personality. We also have Miss Gillian Bartlett, who's connected to Joy and is half of the G spot, so I think just the G spot. How are you tonight?
Hi, Remy.
And, of course, Kay Sarah, the cabaretier and Green Room Award winner, I believe.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that. I'm so pleased you got the right.
No, it's in my nose.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they will actually be arguing for it is a choice.
That's right.
Correct?
It's a choice.
Lovely. All right. And I will turn to my more attractive side, of course. And we're starting off with, also connected to Joy, Zoe Warwick. Is it a particular show or just generally connected?
Working with the conch.
The conch?
Yes.
Okay.
And a bit of general volunteering.
And then next to her, we've got the lovely Mr. Andy McNamara. He's our very own, and we call him basically Big Mac. How are you today?
Very good, thank you, Remy, and raring at the bit.
Rearing at the bed, ready for a debate.
Yes.
And the jewel of the crown, Miss Dolly Diamond at the very end, an all-round entertainer and apparently future Green Room Award winner.
You never know, do you?
All right. Now, let's go over some very basic rules. Each team will have an opportunity to have 1 speaker. The next speaker from the following team will rebut. At 2 minutes, you'll hear a little sound like Tinkerbell going off. And that means there's 30 seconds to go. Alrighty, we'll start off with Mr. Brett Hayhoe, choice.
Yes, I'm going to confuse it totally based on what I was told about 18 hours ago. To me and my fellow team members on the correct side of the floor, there is absolutely no question whatsoever that heterosexuality is definitely a choice. And this is the confusing bit, and equally unquestionably a genetic malfunction. How could it not be? Why would God give a man a penis, make it his very first toy, teach him to constantly play with it, scratch it, groom it, show it off to other men, particularly in communal settings like public urinals, design it with the built-in advantage of being able to be easily accessed at the drop of a hat anywhere, anytime, if he didn't also intend men to share this joy with others of the same gender? Likewise, why would God create a vagina with a clitoris and women in general with a G-spot that only other women could ever find? On the question of genetic malfunction, again, the answer is as plain as the nose on your face. If God meant people to be heterosexual, well then why would he have created hairdressers, interior designers, musicians, the media, politicians, sports people, firemen, policemen, flight attendants, and the list goes on. Obviously, some freakish malfunction of the chromosomal process occurs to leave some poor buggers in an absolutely talentless state, i.e. heterosexuals. Our opponents will no doubt take the line that heterosexuals represent the majority of the population. But do they really? Homonormality dates back way further than its inferior counterpart. Jesus was not often seen in the company of females, preferring his closest companions to be men. Now, I'm not saying that he was, I'm just saying.
No, but he did wear sandals, and I think
Well,
that's
indeed.
Totally.
Now, even if what some would refer to as a heterosexual environment, example a backyard barbecue, it's certainly commonplace for the males of the species to gather with their own gender and females to do likewise. Only ever mixing if the esky was accidentally placed too close to the food table. So it stands to reason. Shut up, Kate. Once again, that the mixing of the two genders is something individuals choose to do, not something that is natural to either. So, in conclusion, at the end of this debate, I'm completely sure that you'll agree, as we on this side already know to be a fact, that heterosexuality is a chromosomal abnormality which results in men and women alike choosing a life of mediocrity as opposed to those of us who live a life of total fabulousness.
Yes, bravo. Bravo.
Rather a
Listen
damning
and learn.
argument, I think a very damning argument. It's time for a different point of view, Zoe Warwick.
Well, you know, Brett made the argument, in fact, for us so many times there. As far as it not being a choice, well, Brett, you talked about Jesus's closest companions being male, but in fact, one of his closest was a sex worker. We know that. Who was heterosexual. Now, if you could choose to be heterosexual, my question is, would you? I mean, would you? Let's think about it. There's the expectation of children. When are you going to get married? When are you going to have children? When are you going to give me grandchildren? Then there's marriage itself, the heteronormative process of two people getting together for eternity to fulfil each other's every whim and every desire forever. Yes, forever. Then, of course, if you have someone who comes to your wedding and is your bridesmaid, it's incumbent upon you to be their bridesmaid somewhere along the line, and you just end up with a whole heap of shitty frocks you can't wear anywhere. So, being a bridesmaid, the third point of why really heterosexuality, who would want it? Then, of course, you look at adolescence, a difficult time for all. But particularly when you think that heterosexuals only get one adolescence. Yes. Sad, isn't it? Homosexuals, of course, even if they're at an older part of their age, get to have two. Wonderful. And, of course, during those very difficult years when one has to learn how to dress and do all those sorts of things, you're forced to dance with the opposite sex, which is very uncomfortable in preparation usually for a dead ball or a graduation or something as hideous as that. And the navigation of the opposite sex's sexual parts, of course, just makes everything a little more confusing. You have the inability to wear your partner's clothes, and you can't use their airline tickets. So, imagine this, if you will. Just quickly, thinking of a young man, not a small man, but a young man in his early 20s has the opportunity for much, much sex. He can be a fireman, he could be a policeman in glitter. He could be an Indian, he could be whatever he liked. But no, at the end of the film, you can't stop the music. Stephen Guttenberg still is in beige. He still can't dance. And therefore, heterosexuality must be a non-optional choice.
Thank you very much.
Oh, don't applaud. We're against it.
But you did go over time. We might have to take some points of that. Well, that's our first round done. So we'll get straight to our sponsors and we'll come back because everybody has so much to say. Thank you for watching. We're back in a second. Welcome back. You're watching Ben TV's Alphabet Soup. We're having a raging debate, heterosexuality, a choice or a genetic malfunction. Let's get straight into the second round with our pro-choice team, and our speaker is Miss Gillian Bartlett.
Yay, go Gillian.
All right, give us a round. Thank you, Remy. Zoe, although, you know, I definitely don't believe that heterosexuality is a genetic malfunction, I do agree with you going, why would anybody choose to be straight? Why would anybody choose to be heterosexual? But unfortunately, people do. And the reason they do is because some confusion has developed. This is my theory. The confusion stems from the fact that we've forgotten to make a distinction between sex for mating purposes and sex for pleasure. We've forgotten that it's not the same thing at all, because I do agree that sex between men and women for mating purposes does make sense.
Yes.
You know, biologically,
It works,
all the
yes.
bits and pieces go
That's
in
right.
together, and that's great. But it's like a bodily function. You know, it's something that we have to do to survive. And like, so you might want to compare it with another bodily function, say a bowel movement. You know, which can be, you've got to do it, can be satisfying, but you're not going to want to hang around all day in the bathroom afterwards, are you?
I think it's one and the same, depending upon your partner, isn't it?
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's probably another debate, Kay. You're not going to want to hang around in the bathroom unless perhaps you've got some weird fecal obsession. And that's probably another debate also. So what we're talking about here is other species seem to be able to get the hang of it. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm ovulating, come on, let's get on with it. Now piss off before I rip your head off and suck your eyes out. You know, like a praying mantis or something. So mating, yes. But that doesn't mean you want to do it for pleasure, do you? You know, and that's my point, that it's not normal or natural for men and women to get together for, you know, sharing bodily fluids on anything more than a functional basis, because what we want is completely different, right? Women want intimacy, connection, communication. Men just want somewhere warm and wet to park their hard on 4 or 5 times a day. Am I right? Am I talking
you're
nonsense?
asking No, you're
Yeah,
correct.
right. This is what I think it's all about.
I know,
I'm
I'm
sick
with you, sister.
of listening to my masochistic girlfriends who make this ridiculous choice. They complain all the time about their male partner. He doesn't understand me, never makes me come. Of course he doesn't. You know, like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We know this. It makes no sense, except the flower and gift industry make a fortune out of it. Because, you know, men just have to apologise all the time for being men. You know, when will they stop doing that? And when will women stop bashing their head up against a brick wall, complaining about people that will never be able to satisfy them? Isn't it more normal? Isn't it more normal for men to go to a sauna or a club, you know, get their end away all night, then go home to a loving partner who's not going to question them because they understand? Or for a woman, 2 women get together for a year, they're having intimate, sensual sex, and then at the end of that they go, I think that's enough, darling, don't you? A year of sex. Shall we just have a cuddle and a cup of tea? I rest my case.
That's right,
Fantastic.
And buy a house in Northcote.
That's right, yeah. I'm with you, sister.
Wake up!
Very well put.
So, as you said,
Yeah.
men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and you
Venus.
do not support interspecies breeding.
No, breeding, yes.
Breeding, yes?
Yes, but after
okay.
that.
Funning,
no.
no.
No,
Speaking
no.
of funning, let's go to our own Mr. Andy McNamara, who is going to argue that it is genetic malfunction.
I'm saying it is not a choice to be straight. And I'm going to go back to the greatest source of information, the Bible. Now, not all translations of the Bible are the same. I'm going to walk you through the creation story from Genesis. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and the earth was without form and void and in darkness. And God said, "Let there be light," and a huge shimmering mirror ball appeared overhead. And God saw the flashing, tinkling light, that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the void." And God made a dance floor which divided the void. And God looked upon the dance floor and saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, "Let there be sound." And "Love to Love Your Baby" by Donna Summer pumped through the air. And God heard that it was good. And the evening and morning were the third day. The fourth day was an easy one. It was obvious what was missing from this paradise. So God said, "Let there be bottled water." And God drank and knew that it was good. And the evening and morning were the fourth day. On the fifth day, God thought to himself, "Let's go outside. I know I want to." And he created the beasts of the earth, the creatures of the water, the birds of the skies, also the plants to cover the land, and bees to pollinate those plants. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, "Let us make humans, male and female, in our image." So God created Adam and Steve and Lilith and Eve. He said, "Behold my people, enjoy the disco of Eden." And God boogied with his people. And God saw everything he had made, and it was very good.
Hallelujah.
And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. On the seventh day, God rested. But then he thought, "These beautiful, joyful, mortal rainbow people I have created, they're going to die out. I need some breeders." So God took some DNA from the beautiful rainbow people and he twisted that DNA. He knew that just like a hive of bees has hundreds of worker drones who dedicate their lives to ensuring the Queen of the Hive has a fabulous and honey-filled life, straight people were needed in the rainbow world. He pulled creativity and lust for life out of the DNA and added some desire for procreation. And God said, let there be straight people. And God felt a bit sad, but he saw that it was okay. God didn't give straight people a choice to be straight. It's God's will.
Hallelujah.
Fantastic. And running now on As We Must, that was a biological jab and a theological uppercut. Things are getting feisty. We'll be back in just a few moments with the ladies of drag and a very hair-pulling segment.
Ooh.
Welcome back, as if you'd go anywhere else. We are debating a choice or a genetic malfunction in regards to heterosexuality. Now, we've got a very tight round coming up. We've got a master's and a PhD. We're going to start with our fellow, Miss Kay Sarah.
Oh, you called me fellow. How exciting. Thank you, Remy, and it is a great honour to talk on this subject, and I believe that I'm arguing that heterosexuality is a choice. Well, I think, of course, how can it be anything but a choice? Anybody that walks around the world will know that it's a straight world. You walk down the street, you see a billboard with a lovely lady and a very lovely man, and they are engaged in, oh, I don't know what you call it, sexual activity. And clearly it's a choice. It's a choice because every message that you get, from the moment you're born to the moment you die, every message tells us that we're heterosexual. And why? Because you have to study. You have to learn. You've got to work hard to be heterosexual. I did a bit of research on the way here. I built a Mills and Boon, and I've been reading that on the tram, and I can tell you it's not a pretty sight, although if you care to go to page 69, that is where the sex happens in Mills and Boon, always on page 69. Some would say that's coded speak for something else, but not me. Yes, I'm arguing that it is a choice. Of course, there's a movement at the moment which I think is very interesting. It's called the polymorphous sexual movement. Anybody heard of that here? Fascinating. There was a film a few weeks back that opened our Melbourne Queer Film Festival, and it was the film was called Kaboom, and it's by this queer film director called Greg Araki. And his argument is that sexuality is a fluid thing, and that it meanders around looking for a port, looking for somewhere to latch onto. Sometimes it's bisexual, sometimes it's straight, sometimes it's lesbian, sometimes it's gay. I beg to disagree. I say, where is the camp sensibility in this argument? Completely leaves me out of the bed. So now I've completely lost my train of thought. What am I arguing again? Oh, heterosexuality. Now, I thought this is a prime opportunity to dip into one of my fabulous cookbooks, which I brought along because because we all like food, don't we? And you'd think something as simple as a recipe book. Is there going to be a message of heterosexuality in a recipe? Because the whole world needs to eat, whether they're gay, bisexual, transgendered, lesbian, or God knows what else there is in the lexicon. I've lost count. I've basically given up. Look, bottom line is I stopped having sex the same day that the dance floor stopped lighting up. I remember it was 1974. Now, this, of course, this is my cookbook that I brought along. You can see how I don't know whether you can catch that, but I pasted all of the recipes in here. There are a number of recipes in it. What are you dinging that for?
Because
I have to shut up. I have to conclude.
Yes.
Oh, well, only to say that just as in the recipe book you have potatoes and mash, so it is in the real world that you might have mash and potatoes and everything else. And then I rest my argument. Just between me and you, I don't think it was an argument, but I had a good time anyway.
The joy of snacks, really. All right.
I'm having a hard time finding a point.
Did you find there was a point in there somewhere?
But we must move on because we have the lady of etiquette, the lady of fantastic IQ, Miss Dolly Diamond, arguing the final point of, is heterosexuality a genetic malfunction?
Thank you, Remy. Well, it's lovely to finish up. Brett, wonderful argument. Didn't seem to understand it, but you have a great voice for radio. Gillian made a great argument about shit, and Kay, of course, followed it up with a little bit more shit and Mills and Booners and recipe books. Heterosexuality, of course, it is not a choice. You are indeed born that way. It's a genetic malfunction, but not in the hot Wolverine kind of way. Oh, no. Statistics show that if a child is born heterosexual, there is an 89% chance that that child will grow up to enjoy watching Top Gear with Jeremy Clarkson. You wouldn't choose that, would you?
No,
Now, I wouldn't. There really is no point blaming the parents either. The nature-nurture idea really isn't irrelevant here when it comes to it. Genetics, you see. All of my parents were gay, and look at how I turned out. Now, of course, in an ideal world, we would all be the same. We would be born fabulous and with the right to choose. In the words, of course, of Lady Gaga, we are born this way. I did look up my research here, unlike the cookbook. I did extensive research in the pocket size. I don't like it too large. I've got cramp in my leg. It's rather bad timing as well. Heterosexual sits nicely in between heterodox, which is not following the traditional standards of beliefs, and hexagon, a plain figure with 6 sides. So I'll make mine short and sweet, but really it is, of course, there is no choice. You are indeed born that way. Otherwise, just like all of my esteemed colleagues, we'd chosen the other side of life and a much happier way to be.
Thank you very much, Miss Diamond. Very convincing arguments. Now, I'm actually finding it that it's a bit hard on the heterosexuals here, so I'm going to try and make a bit of an argument on their behalf, either way. But let's say, if it's a choice, I think these heterosexuals that are choosing to be heterosexual and standing up should be applauded because they're saying, I am proud to be who I am. True. They've braved the waves of disapproval and sometimes violence, and they stay dedicated to a way of life, even though it's quite often goes so wrong for them. And sometimes it ends really badly. I mean, Romeo and Juliet, Bonnie and Clyde, Sonny and Cher, you know.
Martin Sheen and his wife.
Martin Sheen and his wife. These people have stood up and they say, I can't pretend to be in love with Mary Jane Smith or Billy Bob Joe. It makes me sick to pretend. And, you know, lying will eventually turn your insides into an episode of Neighbours. Huh? That's how bad it is. And where would we be if these people hadn't stood up? Where would heterosexuals be if they hadn't stood up and said, you know, here we are? They'd still be in zone 2, scuttling around in the dark recesses. So if it's a choice, then if we do have a say in whether we love or whether we walk shamefaced, then shouldn't we all choose to love? Now, if it is a genetic malfunction, and, you know, our friends of Hugh Hefner are what they are, then, you know, they're choosing a life of adversity. And even psychologists now say that, you know, it's not a disease. This is how they are made. They're like lemmings, drawn to be thrown off the cliff over and over and time again. This cliff of heterosexuality. It's like they're made from IKEA, by IKEA. Tabs A, slot B.
Allen keys.
Absolutely.
Keys,
searching through the ball paradise, looking for a child.
Chipboard.
So, tonight, if that's who they are and that's how they're made, then who are we to deny them? Any final comments from the panels?
No.
Well,
I would agree, though.
Yes.
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
going out on a very
I
sad note,
suppose-
though, Remy.
Yes.
Can we find something a little more
bit,
positive for
exactly.
them?
Right. Hey, you're straight. It's great to be you. Thank you very much for watching Bent TV. This has been Alphabet Soup in our first debate. I apologize for anyone who got a bit confused about what it was about, but we'll do another one. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.